Dear teachers, what is the funniest thing that you have heard a student ask or say? Was teaching high school jazz band. I start passing out blank manuscript paper sheet music with just lines, nothing else, so we can do some stuff writing our own music. One of the students looks at the paper with no notes, compares it to his neighbor, then holds it up and proclaims, "Wow, Mr. Squirrel Sanctuary, budget cuts must hit you hard, huh?" Had a student who would tell me to F off every morning when I said good morning in the hallway. One day her mom was in for whatever reason, so I elbowed one of my coworkers and said, "Watch this. Good morning so F off, mister." Me mom started yelling at her about why she'd say that since I was just being nice. It was hilarious. Taught kindergarten. During dismissal I hand a kid off to her mom. The student turns around, walks up to me and asks if I'm married. I told her I'm not. She then turns around, yells to her mom he's not married, and then turns back around to me and says my mom thinks you're handsome. I think she wants to marry you. It's a story I can tell now and laugh. At the time, those next few parent-teacher conferences were awkward. I was leading a small reading group of first graders. One little boy said, out of the blue, "My dad quit smoking cigarettes, but he still smokes pot." I thought perhaps his father would not want that to be shared as it was 1977 Texas, and weed was a felony. I thanked him for sharing and said it's great that his dad stopped smoking cigarettes. We then continued with the story of Buzzy Bear's rainbow, appropriate I guess. My student was given an assignment to write a paragraph about a cool animal fave seen in nature. This kid responded by inventing his own creature called a spiderpuss. He said it is a cross between a spider and an octopus. When I asked where he had seen such a creature, he said that he saw it in his mind. 1110. I have several students on the spectrum. One asks me, every class, "Was I listening, professor?" This confused me at first. Now I try to encourage them by saying, "Yes, you were listening." Sometimes, they have some outbursts that can upset the discussion. At the end of one of these classes, they asked me if they were listening, and another student on the spectrum blurted out, "Yes, but you must listen better." I sort of appreciated that the student could say something directly I would feel uncomfortable expressing. Not a teacher, but happened to my daughter's teacher. A radio station was broadcasting from the school and the DJ was interviewing my daughter's teacher. Of course, we were nailed to the radio. Next moment we hear a child screaming at the teacher, Miss. I stepped in bird shit. Gag noises teacher was super embarrassed. We had a pep rally one year and I didn't want to go, so I stayed with my 7th period. It was mostly freshmen talking about how pep rallies were stupid until they heard a rumor that a rapper was there and his name, Jizzle. So now I'm sitting at my desk trying not to laugh every time these kids go, "Man, I wanna see Jizzle, because if I so much as chuckle I'm going to have to explain what's funny." Most recently, an 11-year-old just suddenly announced to everyone, "Bruh, I've had to fart like 4 times now, but I've just been holding it." Then a few minutes later, "Bruh, now I've had to fart 5 times and held it." Then he asked me if he could go to the restroom, and I said, "Yeah, that sounds like it would be a great idea." He was gone all of 10 seconds before he came back in and informed everyone I just farted in the hallway. That way, no one has to smell it in here. What made it extra hilarious to me was that he wasn't trying to be funny at all. This kid was 100% serious and completely unaware of the fact that he should keep all of that information to himself and just go to the restroom and take care of the issue discreetly. I couldn't stop cracking up to myself about it, and he kept asking, "Bruh, why do you keep laughing? What's so funny?" Bless his heart. He's a sweet kid, but he has zero filter or social awareness. I was a student in the class in high school in the US. My history teacher, advanced placement history, asked a student how long was the 30 Years' War. The student sat still and mulled it over for about 20 seconds and responded with Mr. Teacher's name. It had to be at least 50 years. Europeans don't know how to win a war quickly. The teacher's face started to twitch and he excused himself from the room for about 60 seconds. The kid was sitting in his desk like he was Genghis Khan and just conquered and slaughtered a city. We pointed out that the war was named the 30 Years' War and he should repeat that to himself slowly and again if it didn't click. The teacher came back in the room, and the kid abruptly yelled after careful consideration, it was 30 years. Still another unnecessarily long drawn-out European war. Fred, if you're reading this, I hope you have been severely humbled in life. I should started a book of odd quotes when I started. You forget a lot, but most of the stuff that are just completely candid random thoughts observations are absolute gems. Like this year had a student just randomly say people be smelling good this year for real. Hilarious. I used to teach English in Japan years ago. It was just around the time of the US election. My student came in and sat down and immediately asked me who's going to win the election. Okay. Our first lesson today. L pronunciation versus R pronunciation. Ha ha ha. Adjunct professor here had a guy change his name to Rich Handsome on our discussion dashboard. Thought it was amusing, but then he also answered a question about regulatory oversight in clinical trials with a profanity-laced tirade. His response ended with the FDA really stands for fuck these assholes. A student insisted aliens gave her her little brother, even drew it out and showed it to me as proof. Granted she's a kindergartner, but still funny. Also, during block time, kids were role-playing what I could understand as Game of Thrones, but with robots. It was pretty intense. Somehow the funniest thing was one of the dragon riders angrily marching up to me and saying, "Teacher, he's trying to revenge us," as she pointed at the smallest boy in the class, who was glaring at her, not sure what happened, but I assumed the dragons took down his robot brethren. My wife teaches 4th grade English. She was asked why she wears a sweater even when it's hot, to which she replied that she has tattoos. The school doesn't allow the teachers to show their tattoos for whatever reason, but the same student apparently asked if she was in a biker gang because of her tattoos. So glad that her students are so innocent, they just asked if she was a biker. Had a kid with a broken arm. It was in a cast for like 2 months. Student 1. Bro, when do you get that thing off? Student 2. Tomorrow. Can't wait, I don't need girls for shit no more. Took me a little too long to understand what he was talking about. I was the student, but one time, during an extremely difficult maths test that I was definitely bombing, I decided to draw a ninja in the answer space of a question that I had no idea how to answer. Under the ninja I wrote, "This ninja protects my name from being marked down on this question." A few days later we got our tests back, and my teacher had drawn 3 crosses X with the words, "They are ninja stars." He told me it was the highlight of his week, and he took a picture and sent it to all his friends. I love him. From my colleague, a senior asked her, "Why do we have to take English? I'm never going to England." I taught a film class and showed the movie Do the Right Thing, and I had to skip over the part with Rosie Perez boobs on screen for, like, 40 seconds. At the end of class, a quiet girl asked why I skipped part. I told her it was a nude scene. She asked what it showed, so I told her, "A woman's breasts are on screen for a while," and she looked right at me and asked, "What kind of titties were they?" I had to make sure I heard her correctly, so I asked what she said, and she repeated, very slowly, "What kind of titties?" I didn't know how to respond, so I said, "A human." It must have been a satisfactory answer because she replied, "Me ma'am. Human titties," and went on her way. The entire conversation took me a minute to process, but I completely lost my mind laughing after the interaction. I was the student, kept playing with my school supplies in class, which got on the teacher's nerves. To discipline me, she gave me an assignment to write, with the title "My 2000 Things to Do." Sounds awkward in English, but it made perfect sense in my language, with things to do being my translation of opravki, which technically translates to errands. But that's not what was meant. It was referring to the many random things I was doing with my school supplies during class. So at home, I wrote a story, several pages long, about a magic cat who offered me money if I can do 2000 things in a short span of time. When the teacher read it, she was laughing out loud in front of the whole class, to the point where the other students wanted to hear it. Best teacher ever. Strict, but the funniest teacher. She made everyone laugh and everyone wanted to be liked by her. But we were also all afraid of her short temper, so we were all obedient and disciplined in her class.